What is up, YouTube? It is Aaron here, back with the channel, and we are here today with a special guest. Introduce yourself, my friend.
I'm Logan Johnson. If you guys aren't subscribed to me on YouTube, it's just Logan Johnson YGO with the group profile picture.
Yeah, so this is a friend of mine who I wanted to interview and have a discussion with over the Dracotail deck, since I know some people that was how they first got introduced to me, and he has substantially more success with me, having played it in a real tournament and done well. So yeah, we're going to do a little bit of an overview of his deck profile. We're then going to go into some of the other types of builds of the deck that I've seen out there and that you can test out, and then towards the end we'll get into a discussion of what is its place in the meta and which build do we think is the best if that is our goal. So yeah, Logan, take it over and tell us about your weekend.
So I played the deck list on the screen right now is what I played at the Seattle Regional. I ended up going 7-0-1. I had one draw to a Canine Vanquish deck. That matchup in general for Dracotail, I think most people know by now, is pretty bad. However, I do think that the Vanquish Canine deck is like difficult enough to play to where you can win that matchup if you play really well and your opponent makes some mistakes. Um, but with the deck list on screen right here, it was really just built to like never lose to Yummy, just like ever. The match, like the engine itself has like very good play into it because Pan and Urgla are non-target pops, which are very, very good into Yummy. Really affects like their takeouts and stuff. Malulu is also a negation that also affects all their takeouts on res. And then the hand traps I chose, Ogre, Bell. Bell is obviously not good into Canine Vanquish, but it's good in the mirror, hits the traps, and it's very good in Yummy, hit their synchros. And Ogre just has like pretty good coverage, and you need monster hand traps in general. But the issue I found with this deck was obviously the Canine Vanquish matchup, but also just like the ceiling of the deck is like fairly low when you go first. You can lose to a lot of like high engine hands or like engine hands with one breaker. So we're gonna take a look at some other deck lists that maybe are trying to solve that issue. Is there anything else you want to talk about with this deck specifically on the screen?
No, I think you covered a lot of the basic points. Yeah, the biggest issue that I had with the deck initially was just like the low ceiling. Obviously, you have a fair amount of space for non-engine, but when the cards like the Chummies are kind of required to be in your deck going second, that lowers your non-engine count for going first when they're live. So it's kind of a trade-off that you have to make. But yeah, when your engine is, we'll say, average, or like maybe slightly above average in terms of its power level, and especially when something like your traps are really easy to both either like get set up and then like break with Ash or Bell on your turn, or just like play around because you're playing Vanquish only didn't draw Stake Your Soul, and so you just put everything in defense mode and then eventually pop whatever you need to, and then eventually put stuff in attack mode. So I think
Yeah,
the deck is pretty like obvious in terms of what it's going to set up. So I think you need something in addition to it instead of like just the basic engine in order for it to be successful in the current format. So
and
yeah, we're
that's
gonna go through. Sorry, you're good.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's one of the reasons with this deck list at the regional post side, I did choose to go second. Because I felt like going second, I never had to worry about my board getting broken. I never had to worry about breaking. And these cards are just so fantastic in everybody's field right now, and people did not know how to react to them week one. But I think going forward, that's probably not the best strategy.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense. Yeah, when tummies are just cards that get you more cards, or and also floodgates, you want to be able to use them as much as possible. So yeah, going second makes a lot of sense. So yeah, we have the Pure deck. This is a list from Steven Santoli that I got on I'll have his channel. This is a pretty similar, just instead of King of the Swamp, we've got some Fenrirs in the main and also the Canines. Have you tested anything like this before?
Yeah, this is right now on DB. This is like pretty close to what I have. I'm not the biggest fan of Fenrir in the main because it conflicts with Nib and it also conflicts with fight meta. And also I just think like going second against some decks like Mitsu Rizal, Malice, Canine Vanquish, it's just never going to be enough. And with this hand trap ratio in this main deck right now, I feel like you're going to have some difficulty stopping decks. So my deck right now personally would have the Fenrirs in the side, and I'd have more hand traps in the main. But I can understand why you would want Fenrir in this deck because it does add to your M board when you draw it. And then the side deck looks like is like a combination of just like different ideas, and then also like
Yeah.
the standard stuff, Panker Tops for Herald, and then Phantasme is fantastic in this deck. I do think I should have played that card at my regional.
Yeah, I think that card is being recognized as a very strong, either in addition to the Chummies or taking place of some of them, depending on what you expect your field to be. So
Yeah.
next we have
The
Shadal. This is the list that I have been updating over the course of time. I haven't put the most time into it, but based off the initial list that I posted that was influenced by people like Herman Hansen and some people that I've talked to, this is where I'm at now. Cartesia, after having talked with Santelli a little bit, he has convinced me that the card isn't very good, and I understand the issue with it. Like, it doesn't really like fix your problems. It helps some of the normal summon cloggy hands and like your high engine hands, but like those aren't really like the big problems with the deck. Like, you just need to make sure you're winning going second, or when you're going first, you need to have like a really big blowout, which is what the Shadal cards are in here for. So I decided to turn Cartesia into a full-on just like search for the Shadal engine between playing Grand Wignall and Construct, along with Schism in the main deck, and so yeah, App Clone. So these are three new additions, along with Gravity Controller, to guarantee that you get to the Shell engine. So I think if you are including these cards in your deck, the goal is just to win every game going first, and Cartesia on top of like all of the Shadal cards in your deck help facilitate that. Have you tested the Shadal build at all, or have any thoughts on this?
I have tested the Shadal cards. I haven't tested them so much as so with like 3 copies of Cartesia. I initially tested that card and I did not like it because I kind of thought it clogged your hands and just like reduced the number of non-engine in your deck, which I thought is like this deck's biggest strength is that it could play 17, 18 non-engine.
Yeah,
But I do think the Shadal cards maybe give your M board what it's missing with the window, as well as the turn zero window play is just like disgusting if you can pull it off.
yeah,
But I don't know if the deck is built properly to see success at like a YCS level right now.
yeah. I'm. This is why I kind of like moved off of it pretty quickly. I think this deck requires a lot of work to be fixed, and I am not super interested in spending all of that time because I also think it's a deck that requires you to play very well to succeed with, and it's just not something that I feel like is has a power level that I want to justify spending all that time with currently.
Yeah, the juice just isn't worth the squeeze with this one.
Agreed. So now we're going to look in a couple of OCG deck lists. This is a branded list that I pulled from Road of the King. I don't remember specifically what tournament it was from. I think it is very similar. It's like either 59 or 60 of the same cards from that deck. Have you tested branded at all in the deck?
This is one of the variants I have not tested with.
Mhm.
I'm not like super well versed with the branded cards. I know there's like infinite 60 card decks, 50 card decks that go around anytime a
Yeah.
new fusion archetype comes out. I always avoid it. I always feel like it's cope. I don't want to play 60 cards in my deck. I don't want to play breakers in my deck. So I really haven't given it a fair chance. How about you?
So this is actually, I think the first build that I played of Dracotail is either this or a pure variant. So the issues that I had with this deck was the branded archetype really thrives off of power spells, and the Dracotail archetype really thrives off of having monsters. So that conflict within like 4 or 5 matches, I was like, yeah, these decks just like don't really function well because the Dracotails want monsters on in hand, and the branded is like I can fuse with my board, so it's not a big deal. So when you summon something like an Aluber and you get hand trapped, you just like can't really extend. So this deck is effectively a branded deck featuring a Dracotail engine, which gives you like some more good spells and like pushes going second, which is strong. But it actually doesn't really help your going first end board ever. And like getting to 5 mana doesn't really fix that much in terms of, or like it doesn't like add that much to your end board. Like you already have Branded Red, you could be playing Branded Banishment, which isn't currently, but like you have so many options already to fuse between all of that that like it doesn't really add anything meaningful outside of like Malulu off of Branded Fusion searching and other stuff. So like it has some value, but I don't think it anything other than like Malulu plus Rahu is like really needed. Like all these extra cards are just kind of there.
Yeah, it's pretty much just a branded deck.
Yeah, and I don't know how I would make this more of a Dracotail deck featuring branded compared to the inverse. The branded deck, I think, really just thrives off of having as much of its engine as possible. The Dracotail deck can do a little bit better as the smaller aspect of the fusion deck, but either way, I think these decks don't actually mesh too well together just based off of their inherent differences.
Yep, I
And we've
agree.
got, I'm sorry.
I was just saying I agree.
Yeah. So now we have this is a list from the Malaysia WCQ top 16 playing Primate cards. This is a deck that I also haven't spent too much time with. From our discussion earlier, it sounded like you haven't either. The issue that we both discussed was just that it has too many normal summons. Like if you think Cartesia already doesn't fix any of the deck's problems, then a normal summon that doesn't bridge anything doesn't really do that much. It obviously helps your going first healing a little bit, but personally, I would rather do something like play Shadal cards. Capshell, I don't really understand what's in this deck. This literally just seems like a worse Shadal Beast. I don't have a great answer for this. But yeah, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I kind of agree. This is actually like initially like day zero, one of the lists that like I drew a couple test hands with it. And I'm like, I don't understand the Primate cards in this deck. I think it's just one of those cases where they realize that it's a fusion deck and it can make Dragoons and they have access to Dark Magician and they're trying to make it work. But I really don't think this is like a real variant in my opinion for all the reasons you mentioned. Normal summons and adding bricks to your deck, reducing non-engine is not something I want to do with the competitive deck.
Agreed. So this is last but not least a Dracotail list. This is from Julian Kahan and Lucas Sacco. This is the list that they've been posting. It just has like a bunch of side deck options and just other things you can play. Have you tested this build at all? I have. My friend Rehan has. He said he had some really big issues with the Canine Vanquish Soul list, which we've always discussed as a bad matchup. And when you're doing things like adding Canine cards, which you would expect kind of help that matchup, and then they just like don't. I think it's kind of difficult to justify these cards in the list personally. So tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, yeah. To me, the Canine cards in this deck are very similar to the Vanquish deck, where they're not. Anytime you're playing Jokel in your deck and it's not bridging you to your engine, I don't think it's a super efficient card. And I think it's a very weak card going second. So I've had issues with the Canine Vanquish deck playing Jokel. I would also have issues with this deck playing Jokel. I understand that Shadal Beast is kind of cool. It works with it, but it's the same thing as like having a Xiaolong in your hand, which isn't super strong. And once again, you're reducing the number of non-engine, and you're playing a weaker archetype going first, where you really rely on having hand traps backing up your board. So I think just the deck building restraints that this deck has is not something that I would really be interested in playing.
Yeah. Alrighty, so now we're going to get into kind of what we've been alluding to is like what is the place of Dracotail in the meta, and from the way you've been describing it, you really just enjoy the high non-engine count, the strong going second engine pushes where it's Ketu becoming a fusion spell going second just makes it a substantially better card compared to going first, where it's just a Rota. So yeah, based on this and all these lists that we've discussed, where do you think the deck should head going forward?
Uh, Going forward, in my opinion, I really think this is like you play this deck like a Fiendsmith control type of deck, where you maximize on the good starters, you maximize on the good engine in your deck, and then you just fill your deck with whatever hand traps are good into the meta, and you kind of have to make a meta call whether you think you're going to play against Yummy, you might want to include Ogre and Bell, or if you think you're going to play against Vanquish, maybe there's a world where you include Droll because it is good going first, as well as good going second. You could take Perulia out, but that's kind of where I stand on that right now.
Alrighty, so Weiss Vancouver next weekend. Is this deck on your radar? Like, are you considering playing it? How many do you think you expect you to play in the event? How many expect you think to top? Like, what do you think this representation is for next weekend?
For me, after playing it at my regional, although I went undefeated, I don't think this is a deck I would take to a YCS right now. I do expect to play against it. I would say probably going to play against 1 to 2 variants of this deck. It is a good enough deck to top. It is a good enough deck to maybe win the event if it's built properly, and I think there could be something out there that we haven't discovered yet that could take the deck over the top, but we've yet to find that.
Yeah. So I think also like in the early stages, if and also I think a problem is if you're not like a top tier player, like this deck will take some time to learn. So if you're not just very good at the game and then initially like pick it up and pick this as your pet deck, so someone like Steven Santoli who's already like kind of claimed this as his, I think him and obviously there's other people who may be on his level that I don't know yet, so that's totally up to them and their abilities. But like I think this deck will require a lot of high technical play to even have a chance against the Canine matchup or the Vanquishal matchup, which I think is going to be pretty popular. So I think that is a pretty big deterrent when that is the deck I expect to be the most represented in Vancouver. Even if it's not the best deck, I think it's just been hyped for so long and a deck that I expect to see a lot of in Top Cut and in Swiss representation.
100% agree there.
Yeah, so if this deck wins, I would be a little shocked, but I think the deck has very strong power level. I think your strategy of going second post side is something that's really strong and probably like one of the better ways to maneuver it. Assuming you have enough non-engine in your side, or like the options between like Droll and maybe something Pank or something better against the Yummy matchup, which is already pretty good. But do you have enough coverage versus like Malice or Mitsu Raizo, which I think it's really difficult to do against Mirakuma? Like, is Droll you're only going second card against that deck, and is that enough? And if you're going first, is your board really going to beat Mirakuma? Who's to say? My guess is no. So that's just my perspective.
Yeah, I think this is a deck that could thrive in a format that's more defined and fewer decks, where you can really curate your side deck to beat those 1 or 2 matchups in the meta. Right now, it's just there's like legitimately like 6 tier 1 decks. It's so difficult to build a side deck.
Yeah, and that's ignoring whatever rogue like decks from last format, like Mermail or Onamat Rise. Like all those decks are still
Orcus,
strong.
yeah, all those
Yeah,
decks.
yeah, all those decks still have very high ceilings, and you have non-engine to combat it. But is your engine strong enough going first to beat it? I think in most of the lists that aren't combo heavy or playing Shadal cards, I think it's kind of hard. But we'll see if I'm proven wrong this weekend. So yeah, that is going to be it. Logan, any final thoughts before we head out?
Yeah, I'm curious to see how this deck does. I really hope somebody innovates it to fix some of the issues. I've tried really hard, and where I'm at right now, I can't figure it out. The decks on the screen, what we've showed is I've tried all of them at this point, and none of them seem to really fix the bad issues that the deck has with building its end board and just not losing to one or two non-engine breakers.
Alrighty, so thank you again, Logan, for coming out to the channel. I'm going to be on his channel later this week talking about Vanquish Soul. So yeah, much appreciated for hanging out, and I'll see you at the next video.